To put it bluntly, I'm from Brazil. I don't look like your typical design leader. Like the white dude, blue eyes with the turtleneck, with the beard or something. I'm not that person, and unfortunately, this has very deep consequences. They could be unconscious to most people, but they have consequences. So understanding for me that I don't, just because the way I was born, I don't have the same chances as everyone else, really changed the way I go about things.
Hola, and welcome to episode 7 of Latinxes Who Design. I am your host, Michel, a Brazilian designer living in Sydney, Australia. Thank you for listening. We'd love to hear from you, so feel free to send us a message via anchor.fm/LatinxesWhoDesign/message or tweet at us at Latinx Who Design. This week on the pod, I had the pleasure of chatting with a former colleague of mine, Pedro Marques. Pedro is a designer with more than a decade of experience building digital products and teams. He is currently the Director of Product Design at Adidas. Previously, the Head of Product Design for Retail at Adyen, where he worked on the point-of-sale solution and machine-learned-based tools to help merchants prevent fraud. Prior to Adyen, he worked at Booking.com, where he helped onboard startups that were acquired by the company and introduced into the ecosystem, helped shape the onboarding process for designers, and proceeded to work on consumer psychology and machine learning, building recommendation and ranking systems. And now, Pedro Marques. How you doing, Pedro?
Doing pretty good today. It's a sunny day here in Amsterdam, which doesn't happen very often, so the spirits up high.
Good to hear, man. All right. Well, it's not often you get those, so I'm happy to hear. Hey, Pedro, would you mind telling me, what company you work for and what's your role?
Yes. So for the last 4 weeks, so it's kind of new for me as well, I've been the Director of Product Design at Adidas here in Amsterdam. And there I'm part of the broader leadership group, and I'm responsible for everything lower funnel. So basically, when you're trying to buy your Star Wars themed Adidas shoes, as soon as you choose the one you want to buy, then my team takes over from the bag, checkout, returns, if you have to, and your consumer lifetime value. My team manages that journey for you.
Please stop checking my Instagram and stop tracking my ads. I was not looking at that shoe. You're wrong. Just letting you know. So
I know you, Michel.
So could you describe to me your day-to-day or your week? How does it usually go?
Yeah, there's a lot of, like I said, I'm still quite new to the role at the company, but it's leadership-wise is more of the same, to be honest. It's starting the week looking at some broader strategy and mostly talking to stakeholders. So I actually spend less time talking or going very deep on design, but mostly just talking to product and tech and kind of advocating for our craft to make sure that the people in my team have the space and the tools necessary to do their jobs. So I think it's always getting started with going to product and trying to understand, like, okay, on this sprint, what are the things, and looking ahead in a month, 2 months, what are we going to need? Where are we going to need to put efforts on? Talking to research and our CRO team, so our optimization team, on the latest insights and results from experiments and A/B tests. And of course, as managing a largish group of people, you cannot have your calendar completely full because stuff comes up. So it's mostly just supporting my team and making sure, basically, I'm there so they don't have to bother about the rest of the things. So I'm there to remove stress, and that's kind of my role, I would say.
Nice. Very good one. Thank you for explaining that. I know that you're very new on the job, and you're just probably very excited about that. And but I need to ask you, like, can we go all the way back and can you tell me like what got you excited about design in the first place?
Yeah, I think I don't think I'm one of those kind of crazy, beautiful story design. And I started designing or drawing when I was 5 kind of people. I fell into it, to be honest. I like music since forever. I had multiple horrible bands, and at some point, I learned how to use the computer a bit more. So I knew how to kind of. I had my way around CorelDRAW and like Photoshop 5, just like for fun. And then one day, I think one of the events asked me if I could draw like a flyer for them, and I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? I mean, I can try to do that. Just put a few names on a thing and call it a day. And it was fun, and not just fun, but it paid. And for me, that was the main thing for me around design, is that it paid the bills, and I needed the money. I was 14 at the time, and I was and my household, all of us had to contribute. We didn't have an option, so I had to bring money home, and I found a way to make money. So I started doing that. So I did flyers. I did a lot of, and then at some point, someone asked me to do like a digital flyer, which was a website basically. And I learned how to like slice things up on like Dreamweaver and just put shit together and stuff like that. So that's kind of how it all started. And then it evolved into most of the things like doing at the beginning, like between like 14 and 17 or something. I was doing a lot of stuff for bands. So I was doing like MySpace pages. So like then I learned like HTML and CSS to do all those fancy headers with YouTube players for bands and stuff like that. So I did a lot of that for quite a long time. And I think that's kind of what excited me, was I could make money with something that I liked doing. It was fun, creative. Like it kind of lit up the same areas of my brain that lit up when I'm trying to write music or trying to just be creative at the time. So I think that's kind of how I started into this and steamrolled up until now. So I actually never done anything else with my life professionally.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, you never done anything. And that's very interesting. Started a designer, but you mentioned professionally there. It almost sounded like you were going to say you did a bunch of other things in your life that are not professional. I see some music, like you said. There was some racing happening, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I made sure to mention professionally because I think it was one thing that I learned the hard way a few years ago, that leaving for work isn't, it shouldn't be that way. So I'm not a designer. I'm Pedro. I design for a living, and I do a bunch of other stuff, and that's kind of where the emphasis come from. But yeah, I did. I still do a little bit of music by myself, just like writing stuff. Yeah, just playing around, goofing around. And yeah, like recently I picked up car racing, which was something that I dream of since I was a kid, and saved money for a long time. It's a very expensive sport, and now I'm trying to just do it for fun. So I got my racing license, and now I'm going to see where this is going to go. But I really don't know where it's going to go.
Cool, cool. Okay. Well, take it easy, but really cool. Love to see the pictures. Um, I you started out in Brazil, like you said, and you didn't mention what city you grew up in and how that all
Yeah.
started. So it'd be interesting to hear from you. From the first job, like you said, from that beginning, to then deciding to leave the city that you were from. How did that happen for you? What was the transition to say, like, this is it? I'm gonna leave my country. I'm gonna go live somewhere else.
Yeah, so I'm from Contagem, which is like a satellite city from Belo Horizonte in Brazil. This is in the state of Minas Gerais. If you ask everyone from that city, they will say they're from Belo Horizonte, but they're not. And I'm also a culprit of that. Um, yeah, from that, I was doing all these things for fun, and then one day one dude reached out and said like, hey, you can do this kind of website stuff. Like, you wanna? I'm starting a company. Like nowadays it will be a startup, but this since was 2008, so I don't think people call it that yet, at least in Brazil. Which was basically Shopify. That's it. It was Shopify, but the Brazilian Shopify in a way. So building tools for merchants to have their online stores. This bear in mind that 2008 to sell stuff online in Brazil was a challenge. People didn't trust the internet or anything. So I had a lot of stuff to. So the company was basically the two owners and me, and I was doing design, I was doing support, I was doing everything, which was a lot of fun. So also a lot of front end coding, like coding the templates, because basically I had to design like the back office for the merchants to upload their products and put prices and stuff like that, and also the front end because our kind of edge of our competitors that we had beautiful layouts for customers. So they could choose amongst like 10, 12 different templates and configure stuff and things like that. So I designed all that and it was a lot of fun. Did a stint in advertisement agencies because it was cool at the time, but don't recommend. Not the best work environment. Agencies in general, it's probably everyone in design tells you that. Yeah, there's things kind of kept going. I started getting involved with a lot of communities, especially the development community. I never thought that the design community was a very healthy one at the time. It was a bit weird. So the front end community was super fun, and I really like kind of going there and talking to them about design. I thought it was the most effective I could be on what I knew, on how I overlap with technology, and that kind of started like unintentionally like a whole thing. So I started speaking around the entire all over Brazil actually about like UX for developers. At this time, UX was starting to become more of a thing in Brazil. And then I met a lot of lovely people, and one of them was Eduardo Chiota. He's a front-end developer here, software engineer here in Amsterdam. He's from Brazil as well. And I wasn't thinking about leaving Brazil. At the time, I had a plan of like, I want to do a bunch of things. And in 10 years from now, I'm going to move out of Brazil. And my thought process was that I wasn't good enough. I think there's this kind of this feeling that Brazilians are less than other professionals outside of like in Europe or in the US. We had this kind of mentality in the past, and I had that too. And I thought it wasn't good enough. So I was like, I'm going to work my ass off, and in 10 years, I can leave. And she had to reach out saying like, hey, so we have this position here at booking.com. Like, do you want to apply? Like, I can recommend you. We knew each other from these events that I was speaking to. So he knew my involvement between design and front-end development, which was kind of what booking required for a designer. I applied for fun, to be honest. I really wasn't sure it would happen. I never studied English like in a formal way. I learned like playing video games and stuff, so I wasn't confident about my level of English. And I didn't study anything at all. Like I just did stuff since I was young, and I was like, oh yeah, sure, I'll apply. And next phase is like, yeah, sure, yeah, fine. Next phase, portfolio. Yeah, sure, I'm gonna show my portfolio. Yeah, come to Amsterdam to do the final rounds. Like, yeah, sure, yeah, it's not never gonna happen. Came to Amsterdam. I was like, hey, here's an offer. I'm like, oh shit, okay. And that's kind of how it happened. So I never planned. I never actively tried to do that much. It just really happened. And this was 7 years ago, and I've been now in Amsterdam for almost 7 years.
Amazing. This is so cool. Not planning it, but being there for the last 7 years. You worked for booking.com for how many years?
For almost 4 years, yeah.
And then you moved to Adyen.
Yes, Adyen. Oh, wow. One of the first people that actually pronounced it right. Everyone says Adyen, Adyen, so it's Adyen.
Cool. And how was the experience that what was the what made you want to switch for this different company? What were you trying to do? What was the goal, I guess?
At Booking, at the end of my time there, I was working with another designer, Brazilian as well, Maria, and we were both leading big initiatives for change in the organization. And the idea is that we were leading a group of designers to restructure a way to improve the whole experience. So how do we prepare for the next 5-10 years? So with that, I think I was leading, 8 or 9 designers. They were not reporting to me directly, but I was also in charge of their performance on that project. So reporting to the team leads and stuff like that. And I kind of grew fond of the leadership part of it. Like I like that I can use my product and technology abilities to communicate with product and tech and then open the ways for the team to do their work. I like being this enabler, and I thought it was really fun. And Adyen, the team was very small. I think it was like 5 or 6 designers when I joined. And the promise was the team's going to grow. We are just a bunch of people that do design. We need to structure the team, give people better opportunity, give people proper titles, give people better salaries, and give people more voice in the organization. And the promise was to take me along for the ride and for me to learn and do that with them. And that's exactly how it happened. Adyen was probably one of the best professional experiences I had because there was so much freedom to try stuff and kind of there was no problem of being wrong or doing something wrong. So it was a lot of fun going there. And I think one of the first things I worked on was redesigning completely our interview process. I have quite strong opinions about interview processes with designers. So I was like, well, I can try it now and see if my strong opinions actually work. So we worked on this. Of course, this wasn't just me, but we worked on redesigning the whole process on how we hire and things like that. Then redefining what it means to be a product designer at a company. Then what it means to be a starter, a core, a senior, a principal, a head, a lead. What responsibilities do each of these roles have? Then bringing it closer to product, bringing it closer to tech, and put it in a decision-making position and so on. So this was basically almost 3.5 years of work and a lot of work. And the promise to do all of this was why I moved to Adyen. And it was a good decision in the end. So the promises were true, which doesn't happen very often, but this time it happened.
That's awesome. I love that. And so what drove you to Adidas now? What's the new promise that drove you to this new company?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of like, cool. I did all this stuff. Like at Adyen, we grew the team from 5 to 40. And I had like a bunch of people reporting into me and stuff like that. But we built that team. And what I was wondering was like, okay, am I a one-trick pony, or will all of these things that I learned in the past few years also work somewhere else? Maybe somewhere else more established, maybe somewhere with a bigger team. How would that happen elsewhere? Then Adidas came along and they were trying to get their UX practice a bit closer to product as well, more like in a product design type of role. And that's kind of what I've been doing since forever. And it sounded like a fun one just to see if I can do it again, basically. So it was more like a challenge to myself that I could put on me. And I'm taking them for the ride, I guess. And it's been very nice so far. So we'll see how it goes for the future.
That's awesome. Love it, man. Pedro, what inspires you to still work in design today?
Inspired to still work. I'm very pragmatic about work, and it's like it's labor. And labor is you put in your time and activity and then you get something for it. But if you can do it with something that you can have a lot of fun and that it's that you can see the effects of it on modern day life, I think that's the exciting part for me. Like the fact that when I was at Booking, the fact that I was designing stuff and in next week 2 million people will have seen it, and that's exciting. That's really cool. Like I want to. Who doesn't want to do that? Then at Adyen, doing stuff on the background for payments, but then knowing that by next week, millions and thousands of payments will go through this engine that I'm designing, and people are working every day to make sure their companies work. That's their 9 to 5 tool. Like is what I was designing for payments people is like as if I was designing like Sketch or Figma for designers, but this for payment people. So that was exciting. And now a brand that I really like, an area where I'm really fond of, which is sports, and and not just selling things that we don't own, which was the case of Booking.com, for example. They don't own the hotels, but now we are the brand. We build the product, so we can have influence over the entire chain of things. How would that work? That's exciting. So I think this challenges that just keep my brain kind of like. I like complex things basically, and design. It's a very nice place to be if you want to do complex things. And I think this is what inspires me. And of course, it pays well. It's a good profession. We cannot pretend that this doesn't exist. So that's why I'm still here.
Cool. That's amazing. And again, stay away from my Instagram ads. Okay, so you told me a lot about being pragmatic and being in design for although you gave me very good reasons to be on design here. But what would be your dream job if you could choose whatever job you wanted in the whole world?
Hmm. There was I don't remember. There was like a poet that says this is like, I don't dream about labor, but which is kind of true, because like my dream would be not to have a job and not to have to care about it, and then I don't know, just be a racing driver. That would be freaking cool. But I think if I had to pick an area where it would be very interested to do work that I think would be kind of cool to do. Um, I think healthcare is something that's starting to spark more of my interest, because it's a very kind of under-designed, I would say, because there's not a lot of. I think in the past there was not a lot of commercial incentives for companies to do a lot in that space. Therefore, it was left to the state, which it is. Like if you use any medical device or any device like that, like you see how bad the design and the experience is. So I think it's a cool area. But this is kind of like good for the world and all. But if I would be selfish and just do something cool for myself, designing in-car UI, I really like that kind of stuff. I find it's interesting. Like when I drive my car, I'm using this stuff in it, and I'm like, maybe I would have designed this differently, and so on. So I think that's a cool problem space, like transportation design.
All right. Maybe we can get some sports car thing happening here. I can see you guys already working on this. It's going to be fun. So if you could change anything, from your past, and what would you change? Is there anything you would change?
I don't think so, to be honest. I'm very happy where I'm at, and I think if I change anything, maybe I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be somewhere else different. That might be better, might be worse. I don't know. But in that point, I don't think I would have changed anything. Um, yeah, I live with my consequences, and I try to change it forward. Not I don't think that much about the what has been. I think of what I have and think of what I could have, and then I work towards it. So I think that's more on how I think about things.
Cool. All right, man. That's good. Um, what would you say if I asked you to give advice to people starting out, people from Brazil, people from Latin America that are starting out in design? What advice would you have for them? What lessons from your life that you can share with them?
I think you're good enough. That's one. No one knows what they're doing in this profession. No, everything is new. Like gurus on the web saying like, here are rules for everything. No, there's rules. They change every time. Every business is different. I'm designing Adidas now. We follow a set of rules. If I move to Atlassian, then we're going to follow a different set of rules. So you're good enough. No one knows what they're doing. Just play along and do what you can do now. I think that's one I wish I knew. Because I think I overstressed about it for a long time. I wouldn't change it, but I would give it paying forward. I think that's a good one. I think another one would be don't if you don't have like the sheer passion for it, like you're not like some Steve Jobs quote person kind of thing. That's not a problem. It's a job. You don't need to make it your life. Just do the best you can, and I'm pretty sure there will be people that will be willing to pay for it. And I think that's kind of two things that I learned that people don't think it makes a difference, but I think it makes a hell of a difference on the mentality that you have towards your work.
Are there any challenges you faced in your past that affected you or drove you to be a certain way that does not connect with the way you are today, or basically that drove you to be the way you are today?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. To put it bluntly, I'm from Brazil. I don't look like your typical design leader. Like the the white dude, blue eyes with the turtleneck with the beard or something. I'm not that person, and unfortunately, this has very deep consequences. They could be unconscious to most people, but they have consequences. So understanding for me that I don't, just because the way I was born, I don't have the same chances as everyone else. Really changed the way I go about things. So I make sure that I make sure that I sell myself properly because I have to. A lot of people don't have. They gain trust out of the box, and I feel like I don't have. Me and people that like me don't have that trust out of the box. So you have to guarantee that yourself. And the secondly, I'm at a position now that I can make a change in that. So I make sure that I use that. I use my current privilege to help the people that didn't have that. So to give people a voice, simple things like give people a voice in the meeting, or just make sure that all things are considered, not just the face value of things. I think having to go through these challenges, they are incredibly unfair to people like us. Having to go through them and having overcome a lot of them really changes the way I see the word, to be honest. And yeah, I wish these things didn't exist and wish we were not talking about it, but they do. And talking and acknowledging them and making sure that I can do what I can is the bare minimum I can do.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I appreciate you being so, like you said, so blunt, but also so open and vulnerable and sharing that. Yeah. So anything else you would like to add to people? Again, you said, you wanted to share things, you wanted to open the doors, you wanted to pay it forward, and you wanted to use your privilege. So using all those things, what can you tell everyone out there? How can you help them with your voice, right? What can you share?
Yeah, I think there's a personal side of just we inherently create these groups. Like in my previous company, we had this group of where we jokingly call the Brown Kids Club, where we just like share experience with each other and we talk about it. And I make sure that I can have an influence on, hey, people, everyone else will get this for free. You have to go for this. So making understanding that you have this hurdle will kind of set your expectations right and your effort right. So making sure that these groups exist and that I can come in and share my experience, and also make sure that the rest of the people can share their experiences. One, this is more on the personal kind of level. The other one is talking about it. I do it on people. I think I tweeted about it like a few months ago, and it was like a huge thing. It was bigger than I expected. Of some built up frustrations of this thing that, because you look the way you look, when you every time first impressions are king, and we don't get good first impressions out of the box. So having to go to that every single time you meet someone new, it drains you a lot. So I talked a lot about it. And that tweet went places. It went inside my company. Like we had a very nice conversation with our CTO and the rest of the company on how the company could do better. So I like to think that just sharing that openly open the eyes of a lot of people, and that will help people in the future. So I don't think it's every Black person or every woman or every underprivileged person to kind of educate everyone else. They should educate themselves. This is the bare minimum they can do. But this is kind of utopic most of the time. So it's nice to share and make sure that the rest of the people see it. The people that don't see it that don't experience it, at least see it. So I do that quite a lot. And I don't mind being vulnerable and open about it. And that's a personal choice. And professionally, as a director of design, I really want to make sure that our recruitment pipeline reflects the world we live in. And that means having a very diverse pool of candidates that we can go and look in at their skills and give chances where we can give chances, and make a fair assessment of everyone in that pool. And I think that bringing these people in the workplace is really about the recruitment pipeline. It's crazy. Like you post a job vacancy online, and people that are going to reply to you and just go and think they're good enough to apply for that job is basically just a lot of very already privileged people. And you need to make sure that you seek out the rest of the people, because they might not think they're good enough, but they are. So as a design leader, I think that's what I can do to influence change in my organization and in our industry as a whole, is just making sure that these people are seen and giving them the stage whenever I can.
That was really cool. You mentioned something there, and we had a conversation. This, like you said, you had a tweet about this, but I also had a conversation with a bunch of people on Clubhouse the other day about gatekeeping and the amount of gatekeeping in design itself. And it went places too. It went kind of crazy because we started talking about gatekeeping from the design community in the sense of like, hey, you were a visual designer, or you're a graphic designer, or you're a product designer. And people are saying, like, I don't accept your portfolio. And again, you just mentioned the hiring pipeline. I don't accept your portfolio if it doesn't have visuals, if the deliverable is not there, and this thing or that thing. But from that, we're talking that gatekeeping, and all of a sudden we're going to the other gatekeeping, which is, but there's not roles that are looking for women, and there's not roles that are looking for, for the people of color, or for Latins, or all this stuff. Again, it's very good that you brought that up. Is there anything you're already doing in that sense at your company that you can share?
I think it's really, at my current company, like we just got there, so it's kind of hard. I'm still understanding the systems in place to then propose a change if necessary. So I cannot talk too much about that. But one thing we did at Adyen was about the redesigning the recruitment processes. Your portfolio already says a lot about you and about your work, and giving you the chance to present it is kind of the minimum we can do. And I have some strong feelings about take-home assignments, because I think that if people are in a position that are looking for a job, they might be interviewing with multiple companies, and then every single company gives them an assignment that they say like, oh, you should only spend 5 hours on it. But that the people you're competing, in quotes, against are going to put a lot more hours on that. So you might want to do that even more. So I don't like it. I don't think it's effective. That's not how teams actually work on a day-to-day basis. So I think one thing that we did for that, to make sure that people have the kind of like the same chances, is giving them these things that are more in the moment, where they can go and talk through the portfolio. And if they don't have a portfolio, then maybe we can give them the option of making an assessment. But that's down to the candidate. But it should be their choice. And we, as a company, we do our job in assessing whether that candidate's skills is the one that we're looking for. So changing this at Adyen, changing how we recruit designers, I used to see it as a very positive thing. We were able to kind of we had like very little churn from the designers that we hired with this process. So that kind of validates the idea as well on in that front. I think this conversation about portfolios and assessments and so on, it's one to have, and it might remove a bit of the gatekeeping as well. Because if you see a CV like, oh, this person from Apple, and then people are just already going to be like, oh my God, this person from Apple, blah, blah, blah. Like, who cares? Maybe you don't know the work that person did. So let's just look at the work and do stuff together. And that's a better and a more fair assessment of those skills, instead of like a take-home assignment that you don't even know if they are the one who made it. So that's kind of, I think there's a lot of effort and strength should be put there. And I try to do that.
Awesome. Well, my friend, I want to thank you for your time. I want to say I appreciate you a lot for joining me at your nighttime there. Actually it's in the middle of the day. I'm sorry. I'm just going crazy here. Middle of the day there, but taking your time to time zones. Who gets them? No one. But again, thanks for joining me. Thanks for answering all these questions. I really appreciate you, man.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. I mean, it's been a while since we don't have a chat. So this is kind of us catching up.
It's been a while since we talked. Yeah, for sure. And again, let's do it again sometime.
yes, let's do it again. And I'm looking forward to hearing from more people like us in here in this podcast. So this is it's a pleasure to be amongst the ones that you talked already. So for people like Dacia, that I'm a huge fan of. So it's nice to be on the same list. So thanks.
Cool, man. Thank you.
Hey, I almost forgot. If you like this episode, don't forget to subscribe. Also, rate us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. Thank you.